So thanks for being there, and I hope it will be interesting. So I thought I tell a bit of a story of where I come from and what we do as a company and where we come from, and also what are today's risks and today's opportunities, and where do we go from here. So let's start with where I come from. I'm Jeroen Ticheler, impossible name to pronounce for anyone outside of the Netherlands, I think. But I do with many other type of pronunciations. So I started my career at the United Nations at the Food and Agriculture Organization, supporting early warning systems on food security, on desert locust control. And I'm actually kind of obsessed with helping to organize data using free and open source software in a way that is sustainable and that is for others to use and reuse, and also at the same time see if we can make a sustainable business. That was not the case when I actually started it. That was in 2001 at the United Nations. And there the idea was really to have something that could allow us to exchange what information we had, what geospatial resources we had in the agriculture organization, but then later on also in other agencies, and make sure that that was using software that we could deploy in countries like Libya, Sudan, where there was export restrictions from the US. So I said, okay, what if I want to do this, how am I going to do this? And make sure that the project survives the kind of trend of the day. And so my boss, after 3 years, may say, oh yeah, this was nice, but now we'll do other things. And I wanted to be sure that it could go beyond that. So I said, okay, I'll make it an open source project, convince them to allow me to do so. And that's when we started and made a GPL project. I think that was one of the first in the UN system, if not the first. Then I joined OSGeo right from the start. We started in 2005. I joined the board in 2007 and joined the board again last year, and up for election again now, next week. And after some time, there was enough people interested in having the project GeoNetwork go further. I didn't feel like the UN should be a software shop, so I decided to quit my job, resign, escape the golden cage, and found GeoCut, in 2007. So this was GeoNetwork almost 25 years ago. Something where I really did coding and created graphics and so on, and looks really old, but I'm still quite proud of it. And the funny thing is, if you go to geonetwork.fao.org, don't tell anyone, but you'll still find GeoNetwork up and running with a very old version. So now the software actually drives a lot of spatial data infrastructures, and in Europe we have the Inspire geospatial infrastructure, and over 85% of the national nodes that collect data from within the countries are running on the software, and also the European Inspire portal is running on GeoNetwork and collecting all the geospatial data in Europe in one place. So success. GeoCut, we are in Wageningen at the left. We just moved in last June. We have an office in Victoria, in Canada, and a legal entity in Spain. We usually sponsor, not usually, we always sponsor FOSS4Gs and OSGeo. And with a small team, we're basically 13 people, try to make a big impact by sponsoring as much as we can on conferences and open source projects. Thanks. So where do we come from more as a community? I think that one of the big things When we started with doing geospatial software, open source, we looked a lot at what OGC was doing with, the spatial data infrastructure at least. That was true for GeoServer, was true for GeoNetwork, true for a set of other applications. It was really about having a portal, having portrayal services, data services, catalog services. And so it was an old slide. And I started to contribute small new things to applications. One was adding a data format to Goodall OGR. So I had Frank Warmerdam at the time, this whole developer, add that to the Goodall library. And I suddenly saw it showing up in ITC in the Netherlands, where they had another tool built. And suddenly they could convert data into my format that I needed to export to countries. So that was really cool. And it kind of proved the success of doing open source. So people were working on mobile mapping and on this type of devices, really quite a step earlier than what we have now on the regular mobile phones and so on. But pretty cool, grass on an iPad Linux. And we were discovering how free and open source software works for us. Because we were developing new stuff, and we were developing it as open source, and we said, well, one of the key properties of that FOSS is that you can indefinitely copy it, and you don't lose much if you use it, and you use it, and you use it. I need to create it once, so, So this is old, this is 2005, but I thought it's nice to repeat a few of those slides because this is where we come from. We look at source code as Lego pieces and we stick those together, and then we can make a solid basis, a car, and have different people that want to use it. And we can change it, so we can just change the look and feel. And then we can also modify that software and make different purpose vehicles. And then we make sure it works for everyone. So this went a long way because we're developing so many new things all the time. But do we have the freedom, or do we use that freedom that we have effectively? Because I think it often results in forks. So you see a lot of open source software taken by some company. They implement it for some customer. They create a fork, they add some new stuff. And then if they do this very often, it becomes really hard to maintain because they have multiple forks, and then you face a lot of regressions. And I think that's really bad because you also lose a lot of code. And to be honest, in the developer teams, this causes a huge amount of frustrations, stretched developers that are unhappy because they're fixing the same thing 10 times, 20 times, and their customers are not happy because they're complaining about this bug, but the bug was already fixed. No, it was not fixed in that fork. So I think that really has a significant negative impact on sustainability, both for customers or users and also for the software project. And it definitely backfires. So we have customers that at some point said, well, this is becoming really expensive to maintain, and go back to a proprietary solution. Then we kind of missed our goal. So on today's risks, did we actually consider the real cost of the software that we make? Do we think that once we create a new feature, we're done and, push it out and everybody happy? I don't think so. I think we really underestimate the cost of maintenance of software. And you have seen this probably with the GeoServer 3 project, if you saw one of the presentations or you've noticed the crowdfunding. At some point you really have a technical debt and you have to fix that, and the cost is huge. Doing a crowdfunding, I think, is nice, and we really appreciate all the contributions to the crowdfunding. I don't think it's the solution, because you really have to go out and beg with individual organizations. The other thing is the cost of technical staff that is leaving. It takes a lot for many of the projects to become a contributor, core contributor. Doing a hack or a small thing is easy. Being a core developer on a project takes time and takes confidence from others and trust in what you do. And this is a well-known drawing. Developer sustainability is a really important thing, and quite some of you probably know. But if you get overwhelmed by vulnerability reports, which is a thing that is happening now with AI systems that are analyzing code on GitHub and just making vulnerability reports that are probably not vulnerabilities, but it really adds pressure to developers. Compromised code from a bad actor sometimes gets into code. Those maintaining the code and developing as core developers have a big responsibility to avoid that type of code coming in. But it's really, really difficult to know for sure that it's not coming in. It happens even in some very core software that we are running across the internet. And then there's harassment, which is a really funny thing. You think that, okay, open source developers, they contribute with all their heart and a lot of energy, but there's people that expect you to fix things, and they'll harass your mailing lists if you don't respond to them, which is a funny thing. If you work in a proprietary company, you don't care. Close the laptop, go home, and be done. And there's nobody harassing your code, even if it's bad. But in open source, you have. So you risk burnout, and you risk that, a whole system is built on top of your software. And yeah, you get all the pressure. And then more recent risks. We've had Cyber Resilience Act as one of the examples, Bill of Materials, CVE processes, lots of penetration tests done on server software. So there's a lot of work there to be done to make sure the software is actually secure and complies with what is expected from us. I think another challenge is how FOSS licenses are respected by AI systems. We put all our code on GitHub. Microsoft just analyzes, creates all the nice things that other people can use, and they can just write some prompts and suddenly use stuff that you have thought of in an open source project. Does that infringe on any way a GPL license? I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but it's definitely something that can be a threat to us. Can you then license code that you wrote using prompt engineering? And how does that infringe work that others put out in open source? So, are we as a community prepared for that challenging future? Because there are corporate sustainability issues with open source software, I think. And we've seen that with Elasticsearch. Elastic at some point decided to take back their open source license and change it because Amazon was basically taking it. There's people from Amazon here, sorry, but it was not nice. They took the software, started deploying it, started making money on it, but not contributing back to Elastic. And Elastic had this as a real competition on their software. So they changed. They came back and they found a solution for it. So some of today's opportunities, more positive, I hope. So I think AI will help a lot offloading community members that have a lot of knowledge, because very simple questions can be asked to AI. AI is able to respond. So give you a lot of solutions. And no need to connect on the mailing list, which has an immediate opposite effect, by the way, because they're not connecting with the community. Can we use AI for maintenance of software? I think we can, and we probably can much better in the future. Making sure that upgrades of software libraries can just be done by an AI system, update code, do a lot of the stuff that we now have to do manually. Also, to help it improve usability, we have definitely in user experience and in how you interact with your software or with your application. We see benefits in how you can index and how you can make your data searchable, speak a natural language, find something about bicycles while you refer to it as, I don't know, a feet in Dutch. Those kind of things will help. AI will help. Will help with quicker development. It does that in many different ways. We've seen it in the GeoServer 3 project, where there were a lot of expert developers, and each one of them using AI in different ways to improve their work. And do new license models evolve? I think AGPL was invented for situations where you had server software license issues. Fair source. There's delayed open source as kind of a strategy. So you develop something, you release it to your customers, you provide the code to your customers, but you'll only make it part of the open source projects after half a year or a year, 1.5 years. So you can first make money on what you did, and then once you feel it's covered, push it back to the open source project. And I think the policies in the EU are probably favorable for a lot of European countries, at least, or companies, because there's quite a hit by current developments in US, Europe relationships, in how, and I'm from Europe, so I'm not talking Australia, but Europe, where you see a backlash on using big tech technologies out of the US, where you're not sure if you can still use them if some guy in the White House suddenly decides that you shouldn't. So, but thankfully we have many mature projects, many mature customers, which is really a thing that probably many of you also have seen developing. Also our customers needed to be to find a way how to deal with open source software. And more also, I think the companies are getting mature. So, yeah, it just takes a long time, but I think we're getting there. So where do we go from here? I think free software is not good enough. And I think one of the things that we do is when we start educating open source software with students, we basically tell them, listen, this you can use QGIS, it's for free. It's not. It's not for free. There's a huge cost in developing that stuff, and it's freedom. Yes, that's the part that is the important thing. You can look into the code, you can change, you can contribute, you can participate. It's not free. And I can get really mad at that. It's not free, and it's important to tell your students it's not free, it's freedom. we need mature products. It's similar like a car. You're not going to drive in some car that is not finished and ready for production. So you don't have to be a mechanic to drive your car. You just want to turn it on, put fuel and go, or electricity or whatever your car is like. You want it to be easy to use for the people that are working with it. You want a clean and consistent user interface and user experience, and this is a thing that we've really lacked, I think, for many years, and it's slowly improving. It's a lot of work, but very important. This was difficult because we didn't have much money. Nobody was really interested in employing a UI UX developer because why would you? It's a lot of expense and it works. Not as nice as a lot of the proprietary stuff. It should be self-explanatory. We need training, we need certification. So I think that we really should have certification programs where you can do a training, get a certificate, and show to your employer or your boss that you are certified in a specific software. In Europe, there's programs developed at European level where you can have a digital training certificate. I think we should go to those initiatives and create trainings where you can actually obtain that digital certificate. We need to have access to components that are stable and maintained. So you need to be able to rely on what you're using. And you have to be able to trust in the compliance with regulations. It's not up to the user to know about it. The perk of free and open source is that you're free to select the model of the car you want, and also the garage that maintains it for you. I also think you need a factory to produce the software. And then you have mechanics that will maintain it for you. But we probably need a bit of consolidation in the factory. How are things built? Who are the suppliers? And is what they build also certified? What is required to build the actual software? Technical expertise to install, update, configure, know about the vulnerabilities early. So you need, as a customer, you need to know that those things are taken care of. Know what components are stable, which ones are maintained, and which ones are just tests. There's a lot of R&D plugins in our communities. Those are not suitable for many organizations to deploy. They can be, but probably they have to be mature first. We organize funded code reviews that are formalized and that are enforced, so that we avoid suddenly having this backdoor opened into a code base. And we have to ensure that compliance with regulations like the CRA, like the Bill of Materials in the US. But also those things are bloody expensive. They're just not free. So with GeoCut, we made a change from consulting to products because of that type of things. And we started a couple of years ago, and our revenue swapped. So instead of doing consulting and make our money in that way, we now have customers pay for software, open source software, which is not free, but they pay, and they pay on a regular basis. And the nice thing is that now we start being at the level where we can start investing in the software development. So we don't depend that much on individuals. We can do a lot of the maintenance on our bill. And so we can take responsibility, and we can also start going into certification processes, or going into having, I recently employed a front-end developer that is purely focused on front-end work, and the UI UX person that is on the user experience. So I think those are really important things that are difficult to do with the incidental funding that you find in many projects. So we have products. We call them slightly different than the open source project. GeoCut Find is GeoNetwork under the hood, but it's a product. It comes with expertise, it comes with maintenance. If there's libraries that are not supported anymore and we've not been able to update the code base, we actually buy external support, make sure there's a supported library. So many concepts didn't change. This is the latest fashion in the world and in Europe. It's data spaces. It's basically the same thing. It's a bit more protection, a bit more security involved, but it's still a portal, catalog, searching services. How do you combine those, get the data, get the services, and maybe have a shopping cart in the middle. So that didn't change much, but a lot of technologies changed and standards were added. Our live cloud solution that runs those applications, everything taken care of for customers, so they don't need to have someone that is able to upgrade the next GeoServer or the next GeoNetwork version. We take care of those things for them, and we optimize it so we can do it very much more effectively than all these individual agents, organizations, customers can. And they can actually spend their money on using it instead of having a techie that is doing that service and that maybe takes a week. So I think now is the time to work on more mature partnerships. And for sure, put your hair, oops, last slide. Put your heart in everything you do. Thank you.
Hello there, that was excellent to have some of the background there. So I'm not from the geospatial community, but from the Python community, and we have this concept called fellows that we've recently been introducing. Are you familiar with that, and is there anything analogous to that in
I don't know, can you explain what fellows is?
There's a specific fundraising activity to sponsor an individual to work on the projects full time. And this has been going on, I'm thinking it feels quite recent, but it's probably close to 10 years now. And it's quite successful. I think some projects can employ up to 2 fellows, and it's literally open source work. So they do all the ticket triage, and then they do a bunch of maintenance. And I think Anaconda also, supports actual people just to work full time on open source. So is there anything analogous to that?
I only know of the Google Summer of Code, where they're sponsoring for students working on things, but it's a bit different than what you were saying, I think.
I think that's often adds burden to a project rather than reduces it.
I haven't. Have you, Marco, for instance? Yeah. QGIS does it.
QGIS.
We
have documentation. I know a big project that does. We do it for documentation. We have 2 full-time paid documentation writers. Yeah.
And how are they funded?
Through the sustaining membership program of QGIS.
Last one. Thank you. That was really interesting. I just wondered, on the slide you had of the shift from consulting to product, was that an intentional decision, or was that responding to the market? And also, moving forward, given, I guess, the opportunities you mentioned for AI, which would apply to the product space, do you see that going in the same trajectory, or do you think it might flip a bit with changes in the value chain back to people?
So the last part again, the first part I got, and then the last
I already forgot what I asked, sorry. So last point, do you see the graph changing with AI changing the cost of doing certain things associated with products?
Yeah. So on the first part, yes, it was intentional, and it was because I was frustrated with charging a lot of money to a couple of customers and not to everybody. So it was like, okay, I want to make it cheaper for everyone. So yeah, if you want the service, you pay and then join, and then we'll still make the open source releases, the technology. But if you need support on that, you'll have to subscribe to the product. That worked well. So that, yeah, that was conscious, and also it was something that I also got as a question from the market. With AI, so far I see AI just speeding up work for many people. So we probably move faster. I don't think it will be any cheaper. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you again for attending the session. And afternoon tea is downstairs, so
Thank you.
we can head your way. Thank you.